All right. Welcome back to another day in paradise. So as I said in the last video, the the torture for today, my birthday present to myself, is subjecting myself to the Sam Seder 1v20 debate on Jubilee. This has blown up quite a bit lately. If you're not familiar with who Sam Seder is, he is the main host of the Majority Report, an independent progressive news organization. They have been and remain one of the few consistently good progressive movements online in media as of right now. Sam manages this very fine balance of being able to, talk a lot of shit, be able to roast these people, have funny banter, while still being able to hold his own in a debate very well. Many of these commentators are absolutely horrendous at debates. They can do a lot of, they can do simple response videos or video essays or things like this, but when it comes time to actually confront and challenge the misinformation of the right in real time, they often struggle quite a bit. And I feel like it might be time to get back into debating, but from a different angle. We know now with full confidence that the right wing is not in the realm of reality. So this is no longer about proving who's right. This is back to the days of 2017 blood sports. This is now about making your opponent look as foolish and pathetic as possible and calling them out on all of the times that they are obviously lying on purpose for clout. And I feel like this 1v20 might be the beginning of this new era. Supposedly, it gives you some pretty bad brain cancer watching it. So what I'm going to be doing for two reasons. One, to make me not lose my sanity. And two, to not get copyright claimed, because in the past, Jubilee has been pretty bold with their automatic content ID with people watching their videos. So I'm going to be running some Total War 3 Kingdoms in the background. This is mostly for me not wanting to off myself. It's a bit, you don't have to pay attention to it. As you can see, we got me on one side. We got the YouTube video on the top. This is probably the most advanced OBS work I've done. I still barely know how to use this application. I've not had enough time to just sit down and work with it. So hopefully the audio is tolerable. The tests seem to suggest it is. So I'll be doing my 3 Kingdoms. It is Kong Rong time. The true scholar of the Han Dynasty. Gonna be kind of playing like a passive play style where we just kind of hide in the corner of the map and don't do anything. And then we'll be having the video playing. I'll be giving different commentary. My goal is to make these videos be as little edited as possible because I find the extemporaneousness of these kind of videos far more compelling than somebody just like, anybody can do a video essay. It just takes time and effort. I have a fair bit of effort on these subjects. I don't have a fair bit of time. I would much rather just free form, share my opinion, edit if it's necessary for copyright. I expect this may be a couple different separate videos because it's a pretty long video and I'm likely going to be ranting for longer than the runtime. So with that ado, it is go time.
Like, what's the problem with xenophobic nationalism? Do you think that's better for Americans?
Let's see if I can move this over here.
Yes.
Nationalism is better.
We should have a coherent culture. Everyone should be a part of the same culture.
Which do you get to choose what the culture is?
We already have a dominant culture.
I mean, look, I got to be honest with you. Like, you and I have a fundamental disagreement. We will never see eye to eye on this. Hi, I'm Sam Seder, host of the.
Yeah. So to start, I've already heard a lot of things that this this particular lady who debates Sam is especially unhinged. I saw a couple Reddit posts where people were claiming that she's part of, I think this might be the Rebel News person. Jubilee has a huge tendency, and this is one of those, they're kind of become irrelevant. This is like their first real step back into being prominent in a hot minute. They will pose people on the shows and the different like debate segments or whatnot as if they're just average regular people, when in reality they're almost all media trained. Many of them are right-wing grifters who are posing to be something they're not. It happens all the time. So I'm curious to see if they're going to be very upfront and honest about the fact that this lady is like, very, very clearly media trained. This is her job. She's not just a Trump supporter. She is a low-tier pundit.
Majority Report, and today I am surrounded by 20 conservatives. My first claim is Trump's attack on DEI hides his real goal, which is to give corporations more power.
So that's an interesting claim from Sam. My stance when it comes to Trump's actions and his beliefs is that Trump believes in nothing but power, and so he will just use whatever policy or decision will facilitate the most of that. So I don't frankly think that Trump cares at all about DEI one way or another outside of how it can be used as a tool to gain more power for him. So if he sees a pathway for himself and corporations to get more powerful solely by, harassing minorities, he's going to do it. If he can find ways in power to do the opposite, he'll do that as well. DEI is just the new critical race theory, which is the new, anti-BLM, which is the new whichever many scare over the time, drug war. I mean, just it keeps going. It's the same playbook. This is just one among many. So I don't fully agree with Sam on this one because I feel like Sam should emphasize more about the fact that, like, this is a tool for Trump. He doesn't really care. I know Sam knows this. He's talked about this. So time to see the backlash on this one.
No worries.
All right. I think I have a slight issue with the back end of the premise. I guess Trump's attacks on DEI being a real goal to, give corporations more power. I'd rather center the conversation around the democratic, especially as conservatives, the issues that people have with DEI and why I believe Trump would, want to support the issues that, people are voting for him for.
I mean, I'm talking about his whole
Right.
attack on DEI. It's actually DEIA,
Sure.
right? You know that.
Right.
In government agencies. The A being for accessibility.
Right. Yeah, and I think the attack on...
Yeah, Sam raises a very good point here. Accessibility is one of those subjects to where it is often flaunted as a sort of like, marketing. Right, so I attended a small college in my state of Wisconsin that touts itself as being the best in the Midwest for disability accessibility. That was kind of one of their gimmicks. And I work disability services. I worked at the Disability Service Center at this college. It is piss poor. It is not very good. A lot of the people who are working in the Center for Students with Disabilities at my college were very passionate about what they do, passionate about making it work, but so much of successful accessibility is properly integrating these principles with other organizations. So yeah, all of the doors have the sort of hand wave sensor, all of the different areas are supposedly wheelchair accessible. But when there's a massive queue for the electrician to have to fix the different doors, and they have a huge list of things to do, and the electrical department and housing and all these other different agencies within the university do not have that same drive to make it happen. It just doesn't happen. And so, yeah, the college with all these disability accommodations, they only get you so far if nobody's willing to, like, manage it consistently. Your little hand wave door sign is really cool until it breaks for the 4th time this week. The ramp leading into one of the rooms is very nice if the incline wasn't too sharp. All of these different assistive technology devices that we give would be really nice if professors actually integrated them into the classroom. So yeah, diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, all of that matters, but it only matters if there is the will to administer it correctly. And there just isn't that will. And that will is now being incentivized to be abandoned, because now with the Trump administration, corporations, universities, all these places, they don't feel like they have to do it anymore. It was mostly all just for marketing, all for advertising. It was meant to make things look good. You know, you get to say on your website that we support all of these different things and then do very little about it in actuality. So yeah, I'm glad he raises the accessibility point, because with the Department of Education potentially going to be scrapped, all of these benefits, all of these things that help disabled people in the United States are going to be taken away. So much of it is sent straight through that department. So much of it is based on federal procedures that are then reflected on the state level. And if there isn't the federal push to make this be a thing, expect disability services to basically go away in the near future. It's cooked. So good on Sam for that one. I told you, I'm going to be occupying way more of this rambling. In case you needed another reminder, Jubilee, this is indeed fair use. I am adding my own commentary. I've managed to stretch the first minute into several minutes of talking about the subject. Strike me and I'm gonna raise hell. This is fair use. Don't get on me about it.
DEI isn't an attack on people's protections. It's on the other end of the spectrum, right? Wanting to end DEI doesn't want to end protections for someone being disabled, someone being inaccessible to get into a job. It rather wants to de-incentivize corporations to push them to hire these people on unfair bases, right?
Okay, what DEIA
Right.
is not about quotas or anything like that. It is about protections for people within these organizations, or to make sure that you have different communities that
Right.
have the opportunity to apply to these things.
Right.
So it can mean, within government agencies, it means things like, let's pay interns so that not only wealthy people can have their kids do internships in these agencies.
And
or let's put out notices around different parts of town,
Sure.
metaphorically speaking, so that people know this job exists.
This is where it begins, but this isn't the ultimate goal that conservatives have an issue with. Conservatives don't have an issue with trying to spread job applications to poor.
Yeah, but they do, though. Right, like, conservatives do have an issue with this. The austerity-style politics of the modern American conservative movement, and frankly conservatism in the 21st century in general, is so much of a fuck you got mine attitude. Right, so yeah, if it's a policy that could help somebody who's not already in power, they don't like it because they're afraid it's going to get in on their power. It's very much a hoarding mentality. So yeah, they don't want these policies because they're afraid it will challenge their power. If you take on a diverse group of people from a diverse background who have different opinions because of their lived experience, it is challenging to the status quo that has historically ensured that they don't have power. So no, there's a reason why they care so much about this, because they see that it actually is dangerous for their bottom line. It can pose a challenge. If you spend efforts to upraise these communities that you have historically shat upon, shocker, they're not going to be the most receptive to your status quo.
Communities,
Well,
so
then
everyone
why
gets-
rescind DEIA requirements in government agencies?
Because the problem with DEIA is there may not be like perceived actual number quotas, but that's what it devolves into, and especially with
Do
corporations,
you have
it
the
devolves.
evidence of that?
I mean, sure, we can look at corporations that are government agencies that are hiring people on not true proper bases. We can even look
Well,
at.
I mean,
we can
like,
even look at
well, do you
the
have
DNC's.
any evidence that that's happening?
Yeah, even the DNC's nomination of Kamala as president this year. There was no reason to nominate Kamala as she wasn't democratically selected.
No reason to nominate the sitting vice president. Are you joking? Right? Like, I'm not particularly a fan of Kamala Harris, but there was several reasons why she was chosen to be the VP. I think a big part of it was the fact that she was the one who really sent Joe to task on, I believe it was the first of the primary debates back in, this would have been 2019, but for the 2020 election. She really proved a lot of the weak spots in Joe Biden. And so while, yeah, having a mixed race, black, Asian woman vice president pick is strategically advantageous to bad faith actors who are using DEI as simply marketing, she also just was a competent adversary to him in a way that there could be some sort of like, you know, a compromised candidate who is still status quo enough that it wouldn't rock the boat too much. That's why she was chosen. Yeah, is it kind of bad that she was put through without there being any form of actual primary in 2024? Yeah, I'm not a fan of that myself, but like with the way that Joe like desperately held on as far as he did, who else would they have chosen who would have had a sufficient enough mainstream backing but still have enough new things going on? To say that she was a DEI pick is, let's just be fair, racist. It's just racism. Well, it's sexism too, but I feel like with Kamala, a lot of the attacks were far more of a racist angle than it was of a sexist angle. Sure, you could go towards the idea that like there is a unique kind of intersectional racism, sexism hybrid that black women typically experience in the United States. That's kind of its own entity. And a lot of that was going on as well. But come on. She was only chosen because of DEI. Get real. What are we doing here? And real talk, okay, this is a personal attack. I'm sorry to say it. That mustache, not feeling it, Chief. This mustache has been kind of being brought back for a little while now. You've seen a lot of people, specifically on the online spaces, that have like tried to bring back this weird mustache. No, I'll pass. You can keep that in decades past. No thank you. I'm fine with some beards, but that mustache is giving me yikesy beat cop vibes from like late 70s, 80s shitty cop movies. That's the kind of mustache that like Dirty Harry is like fighting against the police chief who has it, and Dirty Harry has to take things into his own control, and then he does his own vigilante propaganda nonsense. But the police chief is the kind who has this kind of mustache, and this ain't it, Chief.
She wasn't. She didn't go through a single primary. None of these things.
So you're saying that Kamala was the vice president of the United States after
Yes.
the president drops out 2 months before the convention. You think that's a DEI
She wasn't
hire?
Every presidential nominee is democratically selected to be the nominee for that party,
Do you realize
except
there were
for
not
Kamala
even
Harris.
Right, so I can tell he's about to say it, but like I'm gonna snatch this shit first. The idea of elected primaries is very recent. Very recent. For the overwhelming majority of American politics, the people who were put as the frontrunner for their party were chosen exclusively in like shady backroom dealings. So this whole like, oh, the primary people are chosen democratically, that is recent. It is a good trend, but it is by no means the norm. And no Republican can pretend that they care about these primaries. Donald Trump was not a fit candidate in 2024. The fact that he won, again in quotations, you didn't win. You sabotaged the system via bad faith means and got millions of people disenfranchised. You guys actually stole the election. Yeah, from like a legalist, de jure standpoint, yeah, you guys won. Fairly, because you used a bunch of centuries old, like Jim Crow laws to get exclusively black people in some counties barred from voting. You guys don't get to claim that you won. And in addition, you guys don't get to claim that you care about primaries because Trump had no business winning the primary. Again, how he continued to get the primary nomination when there were far more competent Republican leaders. Right, like if your goal is to just institute fascism, I feel like even a DeSantis would have been a more logistically, strategically beneficial choice. But Republicans are simultaneously fascists and pussies. They were afraid of Trump's base, so they kowtowed to it. You guys don't care about primaries. Stop pretending. Who are you fooling? What are we doing?
Primaries prior to 1972
Well,
in
sure,
the
but
Democratic Party?
this isn't before 1972.
Well, I understand, but what did you think you
Oh,
were going to run?
Oh, okay, so it's not before 1972, but you guys want to make America great again, and you point towards the 50s and 60s. Who are you? Who do you think you're fooling? What the fuck are we on about?
Primaries in those 2 months?
Well,
I mean,
sure,
Joe Biden should have dropped out
But even
3 years
even
ago, as far as I'm
before,
concerned.
well, sure, but even before, when Kamala was running in primary, she didn't.
Okay.
She wasn't the next man up. None of this. She wasn't the next person.
That's true. She wasn't. There were far better choices, and I feel like there could have been far better choices if a true primary was held. But from, like, again, a logistical standpoint, I just don't know how that would have worked. Joe Biden needed to have not even tried to run again in 2024, and as far as I'm concerned, he is the reason why Trump won. He is too old, too incompetent, and too weak. Primarily too weak to have stayed in as long as he did. He had no business doing it, and he has thrown the country to the wolves because of his arrogance and insistence on staying. I don't know what's going on in the back rooms. I don't know how much Joe actually had a sway in it. It's a possible chance that they've just been weekend at Bernieing this shit for a long time now. But, like, whoever let that man run again, holy fuck, you guys killed the country. Ugh.
Well, she was the vice president.
Right,
but-
of course, but
yeah,
she wasn't
that
in
tiny
primaries.
detail. But
Right,
listen,
well,
aside from, I would have might have wanted a different
Absolutely.
candidate as well. But that has nothing to do with Trump rescinding orders that basically say you need to search for a wide range of candidates, not necessarily give any different benefits, but you need to make sure different communities have access to the awareness of this job. You need in your office accessibility for people who have physical handicaps.
Sure.
If you have folks who identify as as trans, you need to make it at least hospitable and not. This is all non-discriminatory stuff. That's what this is all
But you're
about.
cherry picking the portions of DEI that even conservatives don't have issues. Conservatives don't have
That's
issues with
what
making
the-
workplace.
The thing is, I don't believe conservatives care about anything at this point. You care about power. You don't care about any of the logistics. There could be overwhelming evidence to suggest that every single DEI hire was legitimate, and you would still not care. The whole, like, Doge Elon Musk thing is proof of this. He's found no fraud. He's just canceled contracts of people he doesn't like. And you guys cheer him on like he's some messiah figure when he's just a complete low IQ dumbass who is, pillaging the coffers of the nation in order to boost his own profits, his own business, and frankly, his own ego. You don't care if these hires are legitimate. You only care because it is strategically advisable to not like it in this current moment. It's that simple.
The whole DEI
Yes.
apparatus within our
is-
government
okay.
was a function of doing exactly
It
what I
is-
said, had nothing to do with quotas or
it is
even
unfortunate
affirmative
that
action.
those things get taken out, and there might not have been specific
What else
numerical
is he trying to
quotas.
take out with
It's trying to take out people getting jobs that don't deserve those jobs. People getting pushed into positions.
Okay, but what do you mean by people who don't deserve those jobs? Do you have any examples of this? Every time the Republicans scream about DEI hires and these, like, different tragedies or these different situations, they're all unfounded. Like, they've done it a lot with aviation. If you saw my earlier episode, you will know that I'm big into aviation. It's kind of like a hobby of mine at this point. I wanted to get into it as a career, but cars are just not on the table right now. It's too expensive. You guys don't care. You just make shit up. Find any example where DEI genuinely, for sure, had an impact where a person who was not qualified was hired and this caused issues. The only DEI I know of who tends to cause these issues is when Nepo babies get appointed to positions that they have no business running. I don't know, like maybe Jared Kushner or any of the Trump kids. The real diversity is is the Trump family. Yeah, that's the real inclusion, including your family in your business and in how you're running the country. That's the real DEI.
They have no qualification.
There is no evidence of what you just said happening in these government
Yeah,
agencies.
there's no evidence. Find any.
We're not allowed to sit here and have notes and numbers to pull up for you. You can't.
Give me one example.
You can't ask me to pull up numbers when I'm not.
Yeah, like how do you come on this show and not have one example? You don't have one? You don't have one that you can point to? What are we doing?
I'm not able to sit here and look on a computer for you, but these are the
How would
problems
you
that
even-
conservatives.
Sorry, you've been voted out. Please return to your
Thanks,
seat.
Sam.
So I think the roots issue with DEI isn't what the previous gentleman was trying to point. Conservatives aren't necessarily have issues with those things like accessibility.
Oh no, am I gonna get canceled for me commentating about this one? I have a feeling that something's gonna make me very upset. The whole black conservative token thing is getting really tired. I'll leave it at that for now. You can go ahead and vote against your best interests. We'll see what happens when you get disenfranchised from the next vote. We'll see about inclusion then.
People who might need help. The issue is, and I kind of referred to this before, when you have agencies and systems, what tends to happen when you have government overreach, big government, is that agencies and systems get abused. And I think unequivocally, DEI was heavily abused in practice. It was great in theory. It's idealistic, which is sure is fine, that a lot of people can get behind, but it was abused in a lot of ways. When you have actors, like we're in California right now, when you have actors, white male actors who are being told, we do not want white men, we're not gonna cast any white men, we only want...
Citation needed. He may be giving an example soon, but citation needed. What are you talking about?
This particular kind of gender, race, right? That is an abuse of a system. It's no longer fair, but more about just perpetuating one aspect of, visual compelling aspects. Because at the end of the day, what's going to happen is companies are going to say, well, we want to look the most diverse. Okay, and what that is...
I will grant him that, yeah. Companies want to look diverse. Keyword is look. This is about optics. This is about marketing. So if it is marketable to say that you are a diverse company, companies will do this because they think it will make them more money. But the moment it stops being profitable for them, they will stop caring because they don't actually care about diversity. They care about money, and it is simply a means to an end. So yeah, are there companies that are disingenuously pushing DEI and using, I guess you could say, quota type techniques to sort of make it seem like they approve DEI? Yeah, it happens all the time. You would still have to demonstrate that this was a notable problem, though. So until you can demonstrate the actual harm that this has done logistically, I'm not persuaded.
It's moral grandstanding. It's that because we have more black women, we sell better soda.
Yeah, I mean, some of the companies will do this, but again, you are mistaking genuine care for diversity and corporate cynicism. It's corporate cynicism. They don't care. This isn't a race issue. This isn't a sex issue. This isn't a sexism issue. This is a capitalism issue. All of it is just directly flowing downstream from the capitalism problem. If they can make money on marketing it, they will. End of story.
Like that.
I got you.
That is not.
Well, that's getting a little far afield from what Trump's DEI orders are. But I can tell you, as somebody who was a sitcom actor in the 90s, I would walk into a room and everybody I would see would look like me. And I was doing a second position, which doesn't even exist anymore, where you do 2 pilots a year. And I was looking around basically every part of television when I was a kid. I was centered in some fashion. It was either this is about my mother, or this is about my father, or someone like me was centered. So, we can argue as to whether or not Hollywood is overcorrected in some fashion. But on a governmental level, the DEIA directives that agencies were following for the past 4 years, there's nothing, I don't know what you mean by abuse on it, but there is no evidence that it was an affirmative action program in those instances. It was about anti-discrimination. You cannot discriminate against these people, and you want to open up opportunities for a broad swath of people. Again, the internship is like one of the most material things that exist there, where the idea that you need to pay interns. And that's important because you want low-income people to have the same sort of like opportunities to see these things as wealthy people. My kids can maybe afford to do an internship for the summer instead of going to get a job.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, it is fundamentally a privileged situation. Right, so not all people who would be... trying to think of how to word this more adequately. We're talking about like per capita poverty rates between different demographics in the United States here. So when you have these DEIA internship programs, it is truly about providing opportunities primarily for people of lower economic strata to participate in higher end parts of the economy. It's about access, it's about privilege. That's what it's supposed to do. Whether it works that way correctly, obviously, is a company by company thing. As I've ranted aimlessly about, they don't really care about this. It's about, money. And if they feel like they can find good candidates by doing these internships, they'll do it. If they find that it's not necessary, they'll do that.
What's happening is we're talking about two different things.
Well, but I'm talking about Trump's DEIA rescission is a way of basically driving people out of these agencies, making it a...
You're saying Trump specifically, and I understand why you're saying Trump, but I think the American people as a whole have kind of, and I won't say whole because obviously it's not 100%, but a majority of the American people have kind of rejected DEI because, again,
I don't think a majority of Americans know what...
Yeah, citation needed. What do you mean a majority of Americans have rejected DEI? This is one of those to where I feel like at some point I want to do those kind of like go to a college campus, go to a random area, and just interview people on different subjects and really kind of get an impression as to the general intelligence of the United States. Education is at the forefront of the battle for the American spirit, where there are places that have good education and there are places that don't. And the amount of places that are getting worse and worse education are increasing by the day. If you spent any amount of time researching these subjects, you would know that it's an education problem. It is truly a fundamental education issue. So yeah, Sam is right. Ask any American what DEI means. They're going to give you a million different responses because none of them know what the fuck they're talking about. They just hear some news pundits say it a lot. They hear Donald Trump say it a lot. They hear Joe Biden counter it a lot. Well, speaking of which, hey Joe, where are you at? Joe, what you been up to, buddy? You've been very silent lately. I love how you fucked over the country and now you just bounced off to retirement, you old geriatric fuck.
DEIA is...
That may be the case, but again, my point is we're talking about abuse of a system. What you're talking about is not necessarily what was happening. What people were seeing were, hey, because you're white, you can't do this. And liberals like to do this thing where they create systems and then they created the whole idea of woke and then they backed away and then conservatives say woke and then they're like, well, we don't...
Okay, so this is a topic that I have wanted to cover for ages. Liberals did not create the term woke. I first became aware of the term woke because of like Illuminati conspiracy theories back in like 2011, 2012. And so during this era, this was like before like that fine line where Alex Jones was like still regarded as being like on the cutting edge of anti-establishment stuff before spiraling into complete deranged crazy. Yeah, he was deranged crazy before, but there was enough of like a veneer of legitimacy that his style of conspiracism was pretty popular back then in like far wider communities. And so there was a lot of YouTube videos back during like the 2012 time, which was like your classic Illuminati, like all of the different like media figures, pop stars, television stars, all like being accused of like using Illuminati dog whistles, you know, like the all-seeing eye, all of this stuff. And so I first became aware of the term woke primarily from the African American community of the Illuminati conspiracists who were obsessed with the idea that Michael Jackson was assassinated. And so yeah, woke was a kind of like niche black community term that was used in a fair few spaces, but I exclusively at the time heard it used by Illuminati conspiracists who were pro-Christian crazies who were investigating, like pop culture, like Billboard Top 100 charting music kind of stars for being Illuminati types. And so a lot of it was pointing at like prominent rappers mostly. And so you'll have these conspiracist online black communities who are claiming to be woke, as in like they're awakened to the fact that the entire music industry is Illuminati. That's how I first came to understand the term. Woke was then co-opted by kind of intersectional communities a few years after the fact. And then woke really wasn't a thing that people who are woke use to self-identify. It's mostly just used as a slur, effectively a slur by the right wing. So this idea that liberals invented woke is total horseshit. Like, this was like very niche online communities and primarily, to my knowledge, like conspiracy communities.
Know what woke is? They created DEI. Biden literally said Kamala Harris is being chosen because she is a black woman, and then all of a sudden Democrats for the rest after that said that's not why she was chosen, even though Biden literally said that. And then we have this cognitive dissonance as if we're not living in reality.
Biden wanted to make sure that there was that there was an opportunity for a black woman to be his vice president.
Yes,
without
but
a doubt.
so why did Democrats move away from that and say no, it wasn't because she was a black woman? So my point is
it's
that
it's not because she's a black woman.
But that's what they said. I can agree that it's not because she's a black woman, but that's what they said. Why did they say that then?
No, because there are plenty of black women, right? Like, he could have picked anybody, but he picked specifically her. You're positing the idea that there wasn't a black woman who would have been qualified for that position.
No,
and I don't believe that.
No, that's not what conservatives aren't saying, that there aren't, because again,
Okay, you might not be saying that, but conservatives are generally saying that. Anytime that they see any person of color or any woman who has a prominent role in the government or in a business, they just say, oh, that's DEI. Oh, that's DEI. DEI has basically just become a slur. So you might not be saying that. You might be deluded enough to think that it's being used more strategically. I challenge you, go on online spaces. Find any story where it's like, I don't know, female astronaut or like black business owner. Like they'll just always label it DEI. Come on.
Even in the Republican Party right now and in Trump's cabinet, there are people of color that Democrats pretend don't exist, like J.D. Vance's wife, and there's
J.D. Vance's wife is not in the cabinet.
No, but if
thank goodness.
If J.D. Vance was a Democrat, his wife would be lauded all over everything because of her color of her skin.
Listen, I'm not here to defend the Democrats' choice on every policy, but there is one party in this country that is identitarian. There is one party that is represented and it is homogenous, and it is the Republican Party. 85% of Republicans are white. That's just the reality.
So does that
Some
mean
people
that?
don't necessarily have a problem with that.
But here's the thing. You said even if let's just say, okay, that's true. 80% of Republicans are white. Does that mean that they're less moral? That they can't run an effective government?
No, but it means that they seem to be a lot more incentivized to prioritize their in-group.
What does race have to do? What does race have to do? Hold on. What does
Donald Trump didn't have to say, my vice president's going to be a white male.
No.
Because they all knew it was going to be.
No, this is the premise of DI. What does race have to do with...
There is no shot I'm going to win this battle. I'm like trying to only do this passively. Like this is just meant to be a means to avoid avoid the copyright claiming. I'm going to give it a go, but I expect I'm just going to be reloading. I tend to play this game far more as like role-playing than actual strategy. So expect a really ridiculous L on this one.
Running an effective government. What does race have to do? If let's say DEI on the micro level.
I will tell you right now.
DEI on the micro level at McDonald's.
I'll tell you.
Am I gonna get better nuggets?
I'll ask you a question.
If the cashier is black or white, what does that have?
Who is claiming that? Who is claiming that? Nobody is saying this.
I'll tell you what it is. First of all, DEIA means that if you come into this agency or corporation, you're not going to be discriminated against because you don't look like everybody else, or you don't have the same like physical abilities as everybody else, or you may require handles on the bathroom or whatever it is. That's what DEIA does. But does it make a government better if there's a broad representation of the people it's supposed to govern? Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Regardless of DEI, don't we already have things in our Constitution that protect people's rights, protects people?
No.
Not really, yeah. Again, the Constitution was written with slavery in mind. It's not really. All right, I'm just raw dicking this fight. I don't have the patience for this.
Don't?
No.
Do we or do we not?
No, we do not. Tell me what protects people from discrimination in housing and in work, in hiring, or getting loans? It's all statutes. It's all statutes. And in these government agencies, there was nothing except for that order. That's why Trump just rescinded it.
I'm gonna tap out because I think someone else has a better can defend that point specifically better than me.
All right, please return to.
I mean, if that's the way that the sort of game show aspect works, I think that's kind of a cool idea. And I don't agree with the guy's opinions, but I respect him knowing when to back out of a fight.
Your seat.
Hi.
Hey, how are you? Good. How you doing?
Okay, when it comes to DEI,
In case you're watching, this is not how you should play Total War. I'm literally just like raw smashing flesh against flesh here. This is truly a crime what I'm engaging in. If I win this, I'm almost gonna be disappointed. Again, I'm just trying to play this passively so Jubilee doesn't claim me. No, fuck you, Sweefing. I don't wanna fight you.
actually, if a person was not racist, he would hire someone regardless, right? So why would we need a policy to protect a person if we...
Because they're racist. What do you mean, bro? Oh my god.
moved past racism? So would you consider yourself racist?
Wait, are you suggesting we've moved past racism?
Would you consider yourself racist?
I consider myself, and sometimes I think we all practice like some form of, white supremacy.
Yeah, we always have some degree of internalized racism. It's one of those, like, you grow up in it, you live these things, but the difference isn't, like, if you engage in behavior or have thoughts that could be perceived as racist, it's far less about, like, treating it like religion, where like, oh, I've committed a cardinal sin. It's about recognizing these tendencies in oneself and trying to get better, right? That's what makes even like generic liberals better than Republicans, because they're willing to challenge their pre-existing beliefs. Sometimes. Their pre-existing beliefs on things that do not monetarily affect them directly. Liberals are shit at this. But again, it's about a process. You can have internalized racism. You can have internalized misogyny or sexism. It's about recognizing that these beliefs are irrational and working to counter them. And no, America does not do this well. Anyone who would suggest this is fucking crazy. Once again, take a look at the whole they're eating the dogs, the Haitian immigrants thing. That's racism. Come on, what are we doing? To say that we're past racism is easily one of the I hope that is the dumbest thing said in this entire video. I'm afraid that it's not.
I think actually, like, we all do to some degree.
Well, I'm glad that you're saying that. So, I guess going to the LGBT topic, it seems like it's very prevalent for you as an issue.
Well, it seems like a big issue. I mean, the Republican Party spent literally hundreds of millions of dollars demonizing trans.
Yeah, again, LGBT issues are not big issues. Did Total War crash? Total War. What have you done? They couldn't tolerate the idea of me winning with this nonsense, so it has to break itself for me. Oh man. Total War. Oh man. You're ruining the content. Alright, I used OBS's pause feature. Hopefully that wasn't too weird. Total War, you fuckers. Why must you harass Kong wrong this way? He's trying to do the right thing for the wrong man. Yeah, insurrection. Expect more of this in the near future. I give the US like a couple more years. Okay, maybe I can rush him inside. Maybe I can trade for some stuff. When I'm trying to do Total War passively, I like to do mostly delegating. Again, Total War is extremely fun when you play it as like a very niche strategic, you know, battle simulator. But I get more enjoyment passively from just doing like empire building rather than battle building. I know that's not the most popular opinion. Alright, Liu Bei, give me some money. I need to buy another general to artificially boost my numbers so I can win the delegation battle. You lack the required resources to purchase this. Oh, they're expensive. Oh my god. Okay, I guess we shit out of luck on this one. And who cares? I'll pray for Kong wrong.
Well, the reason why they've done something like that, and I think you're misconstruing the narrative, they haven't demonized them. They simply want protections back for their own children. Because children are being stripped away from their parents.
Own children?
What?
Children are being stripped away from their parents?
Yes, due to AB 954, they've now included gender identity as a premise to remove and strip parental rights for children who maybe they are rejecting their gender ideology.
So, but you'd be okay with parents who agree with their children's doctors to provide gender affirming care?
I do.
Right, so that's just absolutely wild. Yeah, if you insist on not backing your trans child's process, you're ostensibly being abusive. There are ways that you can handle it tactfully. It's still a controversial subject, but it doesn't need to be. We just need to work better on things like this. So yeah, if you have a child who is dead set on transitioning and you insist on, you know, taking them to like church sessions, conversion therapy, all these things, yeah, you are an abusive parent and you should have your child taken away. I will die on that hill. You deserve to have your child stripped away. You should not allow your crazy cultist beliefs to get in the way of them leading a happy and prosperous life.
Not agree with that. Do you?
I believe that parents and doctors can make those decisions with the kids.
If a child can't smoke, drink, or have sex before the age of 18, they should not be able to consent to a sex change. Now, in terms of a DEI initiative, the reason why there's military bans on trans women and trans men is because they do not have the ability to cooperate at a mental capacity when they're constantly undergoing hormone treatment, as well as depression pills, as well as different mood stabilizer pills. And so when you go out to combat, do you really think you're going to bring an ice cooler pack with your, whether that be hormone, estrogen, or whatever it may be?
Go out to combat. Who are we at war with? Interesting. I didn't know that every single person in the military is in a combat role. Fun how that is. Fun how you made that connection. For one, you would have to demonstrate that that isn't something that can be done. Are you suggesting that nobody in active combat roles can't have medication? What the fuck does that mean?
While you're about to shoot someone of the opposing war. Well, the executive orders that Trump gave were DEIA orders that had to do with agencies that have nothing to do with the military.
Yes, they do. Yes, they absolutely do.
The FDA, they just revoked the ability of the Air Force to teach Air Force members about the Tuskegee Airmen.
Well, we're not-
What are we talking about here?
Okay, well,
Honestly, like they're rewriting history.
that's your perspective, right? But at the end of
That's just your opinion, bro. What do you mean? Like what? There are okay, so opinions are subjective, but opinions can be founded or unfounded. This is some unfounded nonsense. Holy fuck.
the day, if a person
Tuskegee Airmen, we can all agree
Okay,
existed,
just
right?
listen to this. If you were racist, right, and you were an employer, and if you wanted to absolutely be racist and exercise that, you would. I think DEI sort of prevents people from seeing the reality. If a person truly wanted to hire you based on your intellect, based on your skill set, they would. DEI
Oh, people are being hired based on their intellect? That's news to me.
essentially provides tax cuts. For the end of the year, when you create your tax returns, they give you a tax credit for hiring someone who is black or a person of color. I don't know if you knew that.
In these agencies?
In agencies and private
In government
businesses.
agencies, they don't get tax cuts for hiring people of
And the other
color.
thing I
This
wanted
is
to,
to protect
the other
people
thing I
from
want to
discrimination.
the other thing I want to kind of state here is that I've realized that a lot of the times with the liberals is that you guys push for example, for DEI and people of Latino or Hispanic descent. And a lot of the times what you don't realize is you're actually doing more harm than good by putting them in positions where you make them believe that it's based on the color of their skin. It's based on
DEIA does not
Right, so that's a tricky one because I do think that there is something there to where, like, again, this is a capitalism issue. This isn't like a DEI issue. If businesses are being very cynical about the way that they go about hiring diverse candidates, and they're really weird about it, and they make it extremely obvious in their like hiring procedure that like, oh, this is DEI hiring, this is DEI this or that. Yeah, I can understand why that would come off to a diverse employment process as like, if you're black and your employer is constantly talking about how like, oh, at this company we proudly hire black people this, black people that, like, yeah, I get it, like that can be super sus, but that is fundamentally an issue with disingenuous diversity hiring than it is with the act of actually hiring diverse people.
is not
it's based on merit. DEI emphasizes color, skin color,
No,
physical
it
attributes.
says that the people who work in your agency, it's about anti-discrimination
Discrimination against what?
against people who
Discrimination against what? Oh my god, do we need to start pulling up like CEO race and gender numbers? Who do you what demographic do you think makes up the most of these higher institutions of power? Are you suggesting that something about those people are like intrinsically more fit to be in that position? Interesting.
may have different cultural mores, may have different.
But that's irrelevant to a job, right? It should be.
It's really not. I mean, different cultures, different people have a lot of different values surrounding professionalism. So what may be a professional expectation in one country and one culture may be very different from that of another. And if your organization cannot comprehend what this looks like, there's going to be some tension.
Based on merit, and that is the emphasis
People
here.
get hired as a merit, but if the
Not
DEI,
if you get a
if the
tax-
DEIA, I'm talking about Trump's rescission of
If
these
you
orders
received a
on
tax
these
cut as
agencies.
an employer, wouldn't you hire a person of color?
Dude,
If you could pay them less?
listen, we're talking about government.
Yeah, and so that gets into the cynicism here. Yeah, I feel like where one of the disconnects here is the party of big business, the fucking Republicans and their ilk, are out here complaining about, business policy, business disingenuous hiring, while the question and Sam's response is so heavily focused on like official state decisions, the government itself. I don't know. It's one of those, like, are these people acting in bad faith with their comments, or are they just that misinformed? Is this like a debate strat? Like, what is happening here where there is this disconnect?
Agencies that do not get tax cuts. They don't. They government agencies.
They don't.
No,
Yes, they do. They absolutely.
Government agencies getting tax cuts? What are we doing?
I'm talking about
every private and public sector gets tax cuts when you hire a person of color.
government agencies don't pay taxes. Government agencies operate on, are funded by the government.
That is not true. That is not true. And you know what? I think.
What are we doing here? What are we doing here? Oh my god.
The whole juxtapose of this entire conversation.
Sam's eye contact with the camera. Oh my god.
What month is this?
This is January.
Okay, so we can agree on that. The FDA.
Oh yeah, at least he's finally starting to hit back on, like, Sam realizes that there's no shot that he's gonna. This is all optics here. This is all, they're not actually here to listen to the opinions.
Does not pay taxes. It does not get a tax cut because it doesn't pay taxes. DEIA forces them as an agency to say, if you have a job opening, you must do your best efforts to make sure that every
I like that.
part
I love
of
me a
society.
buzzword. You must do your best effort. I love that buzzword.
Okay,
Because
pause.
you feel like you have to. You're pressured
Pause.
to.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it's called not being a shitty person. You should try it sometime.
You shouldn't be pressured to hire someone based on skin color.
No, not to hire someone on skin colored, but put up notice about that the job exists. Make sure that you put it in different communities so that you have as wide an application pool as possible.
And therefore you get
All
tax
right.
cuts.
All right, return
At
to
the
your seat.
end of the year when you file taxes, you get a tax cut.
You're not. Oh my god, these federal agencies aren't paying taxes. They're paid by taxes. What the fuck is going on? This is like Civics 101. Like, this is so fundamental. There are some agencies to where they're kind of like a government private hybrid. Yeah, I mean, those exist, and some of those may involve tax procedure, but like, we're talking like the FDA here, the FAA. We're talking like even CIA, the fucking literal like spooks having to like do DEI. Like, this is.
But for hiring someone who speaks a
Please
different
return to your
language or
seat.
different skin color.
I don't know how to respond to that. How you doing?
So I want a little bit more clarification because I don't even know if we got it yet on which part benefits corporations, like from your
Okay,
perspective.
so agencies, the U.S. government agencies, the vast majority of them, what they function to do is inhibit corporations from essentially externalizing their costs onto society.
Sure.
So the example would be, I used it before, but it's a good one. I'm making Teflon, C8, for instance, okay? And C8 is supposed to be burned because instead of like deposited, because it's a forever chemical.
It's a forever chemical that is in every single living human's blood. Yes, in case you're wondering, PFAS, the type of forever chemicals that you find in stuff like Teflon. There is not a single human on Earth where it has not been found in their blood. If I recall correctly, the most recent example of a blood sample that did not contain Teflon was found from blood taken and stored from a Korean War veteran. Back in like late 50s. It is in everybody's blood. And if there are not agencies in place to monitor this, things are just going to continue to get worse. With all the shenanigans with fucking RFK Jr. and trying to fuck up the FDA, just expect all this shit in your blood again. We'll be dying every single day and we won't know what's killing us. It's going to be organ failure in a bunch of weird ways.
And I can go out and instead of burning it, it's too expensive to burn it, I'm going to dump it into a river. And the EPA's comes in and says, like, you can't do that. We're going to fine you. You're not allowed to do this. But what the company is doing when they do that is they're going to take the profits that come with lowering their costs by dumping it into the river, and those costs are then borne by everybody who lives around that river. They're going to get cancer, they're going to get gastrointestinal problems, whatever it is. And society bears the cost of that.
Can you connect the dots for me, though? Because it sounds like we're talking about something completely different.
And so the DEIA stuff is just the beginning of demoralizing these agencies and trying to wreck them from the inside. It's all part of like Russell Vote's thing, the OMB, the whole Schedule F, where they get rid of civil servants and they demoralize people and they don't want them to be able to function.
So then, would you agree if this is about demoralizing? I mean, over 75 million people voted for Trump, right? He won the popular vote. Do you not think that in part, you even said yourself that Americans don't really know what DEIA is, according to your definition of it?
Well, the government's definition of it.
Okay, well, I would argue that the average American is demoralized by what they've seen, the way that the government goes about their DEI policies and the military and
They're not demoralized because of how the government goes about DEI. They could become demoralized because you've made it a culture war issue. It's that simple. Had you guys not constantly shouted to the rooftops about DEI this, DEI that, yada, 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 none of this would even be a conversation piece. Remember critical race theory? Remember that one? Guys, remember critical race theory? Interesting how nobody talks about that one, but now they talk about DEI now. Almost as if all of these culture war topics are just horseshit and is just the inflammatory comment of the day.